So we got a package here from China, and it's a very exciting unboxing that we're doing today. What we have in these boxes here are the early mock-ups of what the new iPhone 16 is going to look like. The release of the iPhone 16 and the 16 Pro should be happening sometime in September this year, so it's only about a month or two away. So we're going to start over here with the standard 16. This is probably going to be the most popular, the most budget-friendly version. Wow, look at that. And this is the new pink color, which looks pretty solid. It actually goes all the way to the edge of the frame. Now, of course, the models are made out of plastics and cheaper materials, but I'm assuming the real version is gonna have aluminum on the side, and then the back is obviously gonna be glass. We're gonna go ahead and remove the screen protector, and then I'm gonna remove the back sticker, which is hiding the Apple logo, which of course is for copyright reasons, which is why I did to cover it up. It's not quite the rose gold that we've seen over the past few years. It kind of had more of a champagne-y tone, whereas this one's a very distinct pink. We are definitely going to take a deeper look as to all the buttons and the changes that they've made on the body. But let's open up the rest of them and see what they look like. So we're going to start with the Plus model of the 16. So very similar situation. Pretty much just a upsized or upscaled version of the 16. So we have the same dual camera setup. It's vertical this time, no longer diagonal. And I will say the actual lenses of these cameras are a lot bigger than the previous generation. They have made some improvements to the new generation camera with better telephoto and whatnot. Just your standard stuff, every year, just a spec bump, camera bump. I think anyone who's familiar with Apple products, every year their releases are just a slight bump up from the previous generation. Nothing too crazy. But yeah, before we actually go ahead and open up the Pro models, let's take a look at the body to see if there's anything that's different. Obviously, the first thing is the vertical camera. It's no longer diagonal. On the side, we have our volume buttons along with the action button, which was released in the iPhone 15. And then they have a SIM card tray on the bottom, but it just seems to be printed on here, not a physical cutout, which I think is pretty interesting because Apple has switched to eSIMs for a while now, and it's kind of strange to see that they have implemented this back into here like a physical SIM card. You never know, maybe if you're going to use it internationally, you might have to use a physical SIM card, which I don't think is a bad thing. I do like the physical SIMs over the digital ones. On the other side, we have our, power up switch or sleep button over here. And then on the bottom, we have a second button, which is called the capture button. Now, there was really not much information about what that button actually does. We might not really find out until we get closer to the release date or the keynote where they announce what that's for. But just in the name itself, capture button, I'm assuming it has something to do with the camera. Maybe it's like another programmable button. And just to experiment, just putting it up, like this, pretending I'm taking a selfie, the actual button does line up with my finger, which is kind of convenient if you want to take a selfie, or even if you're taking photos like this, it's a little easier to just press it like so. Now let's take a look at the Pro model. So this is going to be your flagship, and it's going to be your top of the line titanium built iPhone. And I gotta say, right off the bat, it looks pretty similar to the previous generation with the triple cameras. Something I'm noticing with all these mock-ups is the back Apple logo is very faint. Even on the standard ones, yeah, like I can't even see it unless I kind of shimmer it with the light. So I don't know if that's just because the mock-ups are using a different material versus, the real material, which should be glass. These are just plastic backs. Just for reference, I have the iPhone 14 Pro Max here, where the back is glass, and the Apple logo, it's still faint, but you can kind of tell it's there. The glass is matte, but the logo is gloss. I think usually for the base models, the back is a gloss glass rather than a frosted glass. So I'm not sure if they're gonna be changing that for the new generation, because clearly for the mock-ups of the base ones, it's a frosted back. Another thing I noticed is the flash is its own little entity. It's a little dot over here. And then on the Pro model, the layout is pretty much the same as the previous generation in terms of how the camera sits. Obviously, you have the triple lenses and then the flash on top, and then the little LiDAR sensor on the bottom. The button layout is pretty much the same with the base model. Obviously, you have the USB-C, that's a new thing. You have your volume controls, your action button, your sleep button, and then that mystery new button. So that's consistent. And in terms of the size, let's take a look at how this thing sits. Okay, so it looks like the Pro model is slightly taller. Yeah, the Pro model is definitely a little bit thicker by a few millimeters, but it's not significant. The edges are rounded off just like the 15s. So that's consistent with both the base model and the Pro model. They are boasting that the notches and the borders are gonna be a little bit slimmer, but obviously we can't test that with these. These screens don't work. So yeah, let's take a look at the Pro Max. So the big boy here, the absolute flagship edition. This will kind of give me a better feel of how it's gonna compare to the previous generation. Comparing it to my 14 Pro Max, they look very, very similar. Yeah, form factor wise, they look pretty identical. You know, like if I go like this, it is taller for the 16 Pro Max. I'm gonna take the 16 Plus and compare it with the 14 Pro Max, and oh, they're exactly the same height, exactly the same thickness. Okay, so I'm learning something interesting here. The 16 Plus is the exact same dimensions as the 14 Pro Max, which is going to be similar to your 15 Pro Max. So yeah, these feel very similar in the hand, but then the new Pros are a lot taller. They're not necessarily much thicker in terms of the width. You know, they're pretty much even, but when it comes to the height, there is a noticeable difference. So yeah, I think that would probably offer a little bit more screen real estate for the Pro models. In terms of the Pro models, of course, these sides are gonna be made out of titanium, a much higher quality metal, whereas, you know, the base models are gonna have just a standard, you know, aluminum finish, which is fine. You know, it's not like we're going to war with these things. But yeah, this is the entire lineup of the new iPhone 16 and 16 Pro models. Overall, it's pretty straightforward. I feel like, you know, if you've been an Apple user for a while, the changes are very, very minuscule. They're not really all that crazy. I think the most significant change, at least visually, is just the camera setup for the base models going vertical. Pretty much the rest of the body is really, really similar. It was just an addition of an extra button for the capture button. But in terms of everything else on the body, it's very similar to the previous generation. I'm really curious to see what's gonna happen on the official release of the iPhone 16, if there's gonna be any significant major changes. My assumption is that it's just gonna be very minor. And so if you are someone who's in a more modernized phone, like the iPhone 14 or 15 range, the upgrade might not be too significant. But yeah, this is the entire lineup, and I definitely plan on getting my hands on the real version when it comes out. To really test it out, show some real world experience. But yeah, guys, this is the new iPhone 16 and 16 Pro. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like and a comment below. If you guys want to see more videos from me, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well as turning on the post notifications to see when I upload. And with that being said, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.